Good morning, conservatives. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Reince Priebus, the chairman of the National Republican Party, and his special guest star, Sean Hannity.
How y'all doing? That's later. I gave out 1,000 footballs last night. Wow. Welcome the chairman of the RNC, Reince Priebus.
Thank you, Sean.
So good to see you all.
You bet.
Oh, look at this. There's the media, liberal media. Where are you from? Oh, the New York Times. You have to leave. Well, welcome, everybody. You know, what y'all think of the debate last night? I will say this. At the end of this process, and if you were here at my speech yesterday, you know that I asked people to stand, and I asked people at the end of the process, if your guy doesn't win, are you going to support the nominee? Yes, we will. I think it's important, if we want to save the country from another Obama term, which would be Hillary, that we've got to unite. Mr. Chairman, let me turn to you and ask you, talk about the process and the role that the RNC plays, because I don't think I'd want your job right now.
Well, first of all, let me just clear something up for everybody very clearly. Whoever the nominee is of our party, they're going to get the full backing and 100% support of the Republican Party.
Right.
So it's just, we set out a process. And it's really simple. We set out a process. Our voters, our Republicans are voting in a lot of the states. They, without boring you to tears on the process, but they bind delegates to the convention. And then at the convention, obviously, it takes a majority of the delegates to become the nominee. And that person joins the Republican Party. Now, I know I've tried to make this case, and it takes a little longer than you've got on a 30-second response on television, but I just want to calibrate everyone and remind you what's going on. We have candidates that are competing to be the nominee of the Republican Party who want to join the Republican Party at our convention in Cleveland. And when they join the Republican Party, obviously they take in what we've been able to build at the RNC. We don't take sides, regardless of what you may think or read. There is no sides that we take at the Republican Party. We build a lot of the things that you may think are kind of boring, like ground game data, engagement, turnout, absentee ballot programs, voter identification programs, so that I know everything that you buy and don't buy, what car you drive, how much money you make, how many kids you have.
What kind of car do I drive?
Right. What beer you drink.
What do I drink?
If I had to guess, Sam Adams.
Coors Light.
Okay.
All right.
I'm trying to get in the theme of CPAC here a little bit, okay?
Are you kidding? They were wasted last night. You should have seen the kids behind me at 1:30 in the morning.
Right. So anyway, so they
By the way, if you have a
built.
headache this morning from drinking too much last night, if you have a headache, it's not your fault. It's not Jack Daniels' fault. It's Bush's fault, okay? Just get that straight.
So last point, there is nothing controversial about a national party that has its act together when it comes to a ground game and data. We were embarrassed in 2012. And we bragged about, we were reading everyone bragging about what Barack Obama did on the ground. We have to do the same thing. And so the candidates right now are not worried about buying data licenses and building user interfaces. So my question is then, who's doing it? And the answer is the Republican Party. And they have to get what we build in order to win. So whether you're for Ted Cruz, Rubio, Kasich, Trump, they need to have a national party that has its act together, and that's what we're all about.
So this is important. You and I talked. One of the things I guess I would think you're really happy about is if you look at the turnout this year, it is almost identical in terms of the enthusiasm that Barack Obama had in 2008, and the Democrats are down 33% in their turnout in their primary. That would tell me that enthusiasm is on our side. Right track, wrong track. a vast majority of the American people think we're on the wrong track. So that certainly would be a good indicator that this could be a great year for the Republicans.
Well, you're seeing historical turnout across this country that we've never seen before. We've got 17 million people last night watching the Fox News debate. Now,
17 million? You got the ratings already?
Well,
how did I do at one?
They're estimating. But the point is, though, yeah, there's some drama. We know that. There's intrigue. But with all of that comes an incredible amount of enthusiasm. We started a program called Republican Leadership Initiative. You can look it up at GOP.com. We have some people out there that are part of it. We have over 10,000 people that have signed up for 6 weeks of training to be ready to go in all of the targeted turfs that we've identified across the country.
This is really going to be new this presidential election year,
right.
and that is that you have basically adopted what the Democrats very wisely had adopted for Barack Obama, and that is targeting every single voter in every single county in every single state, that when it comes election day, they are going to be getting calls and reminded to go out and vote and how important this election is.
Well,
is that a good way to put it?
It's exactly right. But we have to admit something. We've become a midterm party that doesn't lose and a presidential party that has a hard time winning. We've got more Republicans elected across this country since 1900. But we have to figure out how to win. But we have to win a cultural vote in this country. And that's a different process. It requires total immersion, complete saturation in communities, in many cases that we don't represent in Congress or the state legislature. So if we don't put 10 people every 10 blocks in targeted states, where you're not just talking about fracking and clean coal and all that stuff, a lot of people don't care about that, but we've got to talk about the issues that matter in communities. But we also have to do things like have pizza parties, bring bands in, get to know people, and then cash in all of those
relationships. They'd be happier with the Coors Light, but with the pizza. All right, no, I have a serious question because I think this is really, really important. You heard Mitt Romney's speech yesterday. You all heard Mitt Romney's speech yesterday? Okay. I voted for Mitt Romney proudly, and I think he would have been a great president. I was not happy with the speech yesterday. I don't want to drag you into that, but what he was suggesting is more important in terms of, I think, what this audience wants to hear from you. And that is, what he's suggesting is that people in Ohio vote for Kasich and people in Florida vote for Marco, and then people around the states, they vote for this. In other words, there seems to be a strategy now to target one candidate and force a brokered convention, which I would argue probably is not good for you or the Republican Party, and I think the people ought to decide.
Well, the people are going to decide. I mean, that's just the point. I mean, there's no way that the people are not going to decide. There's no way that the delegates are not going to decide. Well, let me hang on a second. If you were at the convention, you would be bound on the first vote, and the majority of you would choose the nominee. And whoever the majority chooses is going to be the nominee of our party. So that's our pledge to you. And the other thing I'd just say is this. I think a lot of this is early talk. And we have over, just so you understand, there are 1,237 delegates needed to be the nominee of our party. There are 1,744 delegates left to be distributed. We are a long way to go. In fact, between now, everyone's talking about Ohio and Florida, right? But between now and that day, there's actually 14.5% of all the delegates are yet to be distributed. We've got 4 states going this Saturday, another 4 or 5 going on Tuesday. Puerto Rico's going on Sunday. So I would just say what I've always said. I think the odds of a contested convention are very small.
You do?
And of course, I've been saying that for a long time, but
can I give you a hypothetical?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, you're not. It's fact. You either have the delegates or you don't.
Let's say we go to the convention, and rather than get people all worked up here, let's say candidate A is leading by a fairly significant amount, but he doesn't get to 1237. Candidate A goes in, we have the first round of voting, he doesn't get to 1237, then it's a second round of voting, and the delegates are now freed up that they can vote any way they want, horse trading behind the scenes. Let's say the candidate that had the most delegates but didn't get the nomination on the first vote ends up losing the nomination. Don't you think the people that are with the guy that got the most votes are going to be angry if their guy doesn't win?
The last time we've ever been through that, the last time we've ever been through this, First of all, I advise all of you, you're excited about this, you all become delegates to the convention. Because, the last time we've ever been through this is if it did happen, which I again believe is highly unlikely, and I've said that.
What are the odds it won't happen?
I don't know, 85, 90%. I mean,
Okay.
I just don't.
So this is really hypothetical, but I think people want to know just in case.
Right, but just in case, we'll play that game. I think that what would happen would be going back to 1976. It was one round. Reagan challenged Ford at the convention. Ford ended up winning on the first round. On the second round, you still have the same rules that apply as we sit here today. You still need a majority of 8 states to be nominated.
But every delegate that was committed to a candidate in the second round of voting can switch.
In most cases. In some cases, delegates are bound for 2 votes.
Yeah.
Some cases, they're bound for 3 votes. Some cases, they're not bound at all, even on the first vote. The delegate allocation rules weren't something that we started with many, many years ago. It used to be that our party would have a convention, and at the convention, the people on the floor would choose our nominee. You would all compete in the states to be the delegate, and maybe you were heading up one of the Republican groups, and you became a delegate from Wisconsin or whatever, and you'd show up and you'd vote. But at some point, some people said, I've got an idea. Why don't we tie a primary or a caucus to the actions of a delegate so that we can get more people involved? And that's how all these rules came into place. And suddenly now you have delegates going to a convention that are now tied to the outcomes of caucuses and primaries. And so, and if that were to happen, obviously we're sort of in territory that our party hasn't seen. Again, highly, highly unlikely. So everyone's clear out there.
Let me, I've tried to explain both on radio and TV, and I don't know if this is confusing to many of you. I assume it is because it's confusing to me. So we have in some states proportional distribution of delegates. When we hit March 15th, we have Ohio, Florida, for example. It's winner take all state. Why would it be better, and I'm just thinking out loud here, to maybe have a universal system for every state where perhaps winning the congressional district would be the determining factor of whether or not you get the delegates from that district?
Well, you know, there's states' rights. I mean, states get to choose the plan that...
I'm not against states' rights.
Right.
Hold on, relax.
I mean, the last thing most people...
I'm a right-winger here, please.
I mean, I hear you, and everyone loves uniformity and clarity. But
you admit it's confusing.
Right, but at the same time, I would bet this crowd, the last thing they would want is the Republican National Committee dictating to all of the states and all the territories exactly how they're going to operate. And so we have a system.
But we're picking a national candidate.
That's right. I get that.
Yeah.
And so, but those are debates that we have constantly. So a lot of these folks, I'm sure, have been delegates or on some of our committees at conventions, but we have every 4 years, we debate the carve-outs. I mean, should we start with Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina? Why not another state? So that's always the every 4-year debate. The winner-take-all and the proportional calendar. People are debating that right now. You know, is the process too fast or too slow? So those are debates that we have, but as of now, we have proportionality through March 14th. On the 15th, states can go winner-take-all if they want to, and a lot of them aren't, but they can. And
why can't they prior to March? If you said the state should decide, why can't they prior to that?
So we put in a rule years ago to add the entire month of March to be proportional. Remember, in 2012, the entire month was proportional. But at the Rules Committee, which I know a lot of people here hated in Tampa, at the Rules Committee, they eliminated all proportionality. So a lot of the reporters out there that think that we cut proportionality in half, actually we added 2 weeks of proportionality because at the convention, they removed the proportionality. They took the 5-state plurality and made it 8-state majority. And so we added in 2 weeks of proportionality so that you didn't have a national primary in the first 2 weeks of March.
Let me ask this question. It's sort of related. In any way, as the chairman of the RNC, does it bother you that there now seems to be an effort to get to the brokered convention, which I know you say isn't going to happen, but it seems to be a well-orchestrated, planned-out campaign outlined by Governor Romney yesterday
Well,
to get to a brokered
You know,
convention.
look, here's what's going to happen. At some point, this is interesting.
You don't think it matters if they spend money and they make a tax and,
Well, I
and they
think people
pour
can
all
do
this
what they
money
want to
in-
do, but eventually the voters are going to vote,
Yeah.
and they're going to decide. And either you're getting the vote or you're not getting the vote. I mean,
But
you're going to run out of time.
The thing
I mean,
that
that's what
they're trying
happens.
to influence the process in a way that would be disruptive, right?
Well, it's a strategy that people can use, but you know, look, I would suggest that it's better to win, and it's better to win races and accumulate delegates. I mean, that's the point.
Agreed. I think the thing, and I want to just get a feeling from this crowd, the fact that there are people that we don't even know really who they are, have designed a plan to create chaos. To me, I'm
Right,
only
I would
speaking-
prefer Reagan's 11th Commandment. I would
that's
prefer
true.
people not.
Did you watch the debate last night?
Yeah, right. Well, at Fox News, right?
Yeah. Fair and balanced. Yeah. All right. I think what's the most important thing that, and you have been very, very key, because I talked to all the candidates, and you have told every campaign you're neutral.
Right.
You have told every campaign that at the end of this process, when you have a candidate, that you are going to support.
That's right.
What does that mean for the candidate? You talked about, targeting voters, but what else does it mean when the
what it
RNC gets
means.
behind
I mean,
the
when I
nominee?
walked in the door of the RNC, as you all recall, we were 26 million in debt. Both credit cards were suspended for non-payment. We had
Sound like a Democrat.
about
sorry.
80 employees. We had about 80 employees. And we've moved on to thousands and thousands of employees. We are covering districts across this country in ways that we never have before. We've invested over $100 million in data. We are twice as big as the DNC. We've outraised them by 2.
How's our money going? How's your money going into? How's your money going
Right.
into?
Well, I mean, it goes directly into funding the mechanics, the ground game, the data operation.
And you have more than the Democratic Party.
We have far more. I mean, if anyone wants to look this up and check RNC versus DNC fundraising, it's not even close. I mean, unfortunately, the DNC is not our competition. Our competition is Hillary Clinton. It's that machine, and they build their program differently. They build their program around a candidate.
That's a
so
good
it's
question.
just like Barack Obama. He built his data operation in Chicago around Barack Obama. We build our operation around the Republican National Committee that one of the candidates plugs into. So there is no option. There is no entity that's going to fund a ground operation that someone's going to plug into. And these candidates are not funding a national ground operation right now. They're worried about what's going to happen in the
Saturday.
next contest. So who is doing the work? The Republican National Committee.
All right.
And we need to be successful.
How I can predict with certainty to this audience everything, and you know what the game plan of the Democrats. We know what Hillary's going to do. She's going to say whoever the nominee is racist, and there's a war on women. I see more women in here than men, by the way, for the media if they're paying attention. There's a war on women, that Republicans are homophobes, that they want dirty air and water. Those words came out of Obama's mouth. That they want the young people and old people to fend for themselves. That lookalikes like your friend Paul Ryan are going to be pushing every grandmother in the country over a cliff out of her wheelchair. Are you prepared on that front to deal with that, whoever the candidate is? And on the second side of that question, I want to ask, how ready are you? I read this week the Democrats are ready for whoever the nominee is. How much research, research have you guys done on whoever?
Well, as you know, we have a full-time department in research at the Republican National Committee. And we've been preparing the book on Hillary Clinton, obviously, for years. And obviously, there's more to do.
How many
She has her
pages?
own
How
problem.
many millions of pages?
Well, look, I mean, you might want to also talk to the FBI and the DOJ and see what they've got in store for Hillary Clinton. But I can assure you that when the DOJ hands out immunity agreements around your employees, it's not for something that's not real.
Do you think she look good? Do you think Hillary looks good in orange?
Well, we might have to find out. But, and who knows? Hillary Clinton might not even be eligible to run by the time we get to November.
Good point.
So
are you
we're prepared.
Are you
but also
prepared
on
for
your
that?
front, on the other front, even in the House and the things that Paul Ryan's talking about is having an agenda. We didn't have an agenda 4 years ago. And you harped on that and harped on it. I remember being on your show continuously. But having the 5 things that you believe in, what are the 5 things? What are the 5 things you're going to do next quarter, and then go do those 5 things, and then talk about what you did, and then talk about the next 5 things you did, having a legislative agenda. But we also have to have a person on the ballot that people believe in, that have a vision, that people want to have a beer with. But we also have to have an operation that can identify voters that are unique to presidential years, that we can turn out and do a heck of a lot better job than we did in 2012, so that we can win once and for all, make sure that we save the Supreme Court for the next generation, and make sure that we obviously get our debt bomb under control and get our country back on track. That's what's at stake in this election.
Let me ask you the last question, which I think is the toughest question I've got to ask you, but I know it's on the minds of many of the people here. There are, if you look in the state polls, exit polls after every state, there's anywhere between 55 and 65% of Republicans that feel betrayed.
Sure.
I think the Republican governors, in fairness, have done a great job.
Right. I mean, you have,
They
like
really
I said,
have.
you have 2 different situations.
But you're right, we have 900 plus more legislative seats, we have more Senate seats, we have more House seats. The RNC has gotten elected, but on the issue of repealing and replacing Obamacare, and the issue and the promise in 2014 to stop executive amnesty, there's a feeling that Republicans didn't fight, that they were too timid, they were afraid they were going to get blamed for a government shutdown. How does that...
If I could single-handedly repeal Obamacare, and if I could obviously tear up executive amnesty, I would do it right here on this.
But they had the power of the purse.
They do, but they also have a constitution that provides for veto authority that the president has, and that's constitutional as well. So, look, I'm for you. I don't think you can't promise things that you can't deliver. I mean, that's clearly something that you can't do, you know?
All right, let's give the chairman, no, this is important. Are you saying you don't believe they could have used the power of the purse to defund Obamacare?
They can, and I wish that the legislature would. But as the chairman of the RNC, I don't have the authority to walk across the street and pass bills single-handedly.
But I think what I heard,
we get people elected, and you know that's what primaries are for. That's what the choice is on the ballot that everyone has.
I don't want to put you on defensive. You weren't in Congress, but I think what this crowd wants to see. You were talking about Paul Ryan, and I've interviewed him about this, laying out a positive agenda. I just think that they want to make sure that if they get the House, the Senate, and the presidency, that these things are done.
Well, and I think that you need to have a person in the White House that can sign those bills.
Yeah, I agree. You all have a good time?
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you.
Chairman of the RNC.
And by the way, if you look down here, we're one of your main sponsors here of CPAC, because we want you to know that we care about you, love you, and we do want to make you proud of our party. So thank you.
Give it up for Chairman Reince Priebus. Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Great.
I lost my thing. Good job.
That's fine.
Very good.